Hey there, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the OpenIntro Podcast with myself, Joel Blake OBE. Pleasure to be with you once again. And today's conversation is going to be really inspiring and really empowering because in researching this gentleman and learning a little bit about his story, which I'm sure he's going to share today, I've just been fascinated by the art of storytelling, how you take that into business, and then how you go and help other people to tell their own stories, and so much more. And so I know in this kind of episode, you're going to be so blown away by what you're about to hear. So I want to say a huge, huge welcome to Ben Wiggins. Ben, how are you?
Joel, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Love the work that you're doing, and I love the team at OpenIntro.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for your support. As I say, when looking at your story and what you've done and what you're going on to do in many areas, it's just so fascinating, this journey of storytelling. And it strikes me that's been at the heart of your journey so far. But could you give me your why? Why is storytelling so intricate and so essential to who you are and what you do?
Sure. I think if you want someone to understand a message, tell them a story. That's at the root of all of this. Is metaphor and similes and all of those storytelling devices are at the root of human understanding, and the why in terms of the work that I've done and am doing. It's really about it's about helping people connect, helping people identify with each other, helping a founder in Malaysia identify with an investor in the United States, and for them to realize this person is not so different from me. They're the same as me. They're trying to take care of their community and help the people that they care about and make the world a better place.
I mean, I love that immediately. Listen, I know we're going to get on with this podcast because I think what we find, I've certainly seen on my side of the pond, if you like, that the human centeredness has been lost in society. I know we've
Mm-hmm.
all gone through a lot of times if you go back to COVID and the pandemic and to where we are now.
Yeah.
But I feel that human centeredness has been lost. But it strikes me that in your journey, that's always been front and center and very, crucial to that journey. But tell us a little about that journey. Where did you start off, and how did that meander you on this life?
Sure. I'm 43 years old. I've been out of college, out of university for about 20 years. And the first 3 of those years I spent in sports, 2.5. I spent in sports. I worked in American football for a few years, and then in 2008, kind of where this storytelling journey begins, is I moved to Los Angeles. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I had a couple of friends that were working in the entertainment business in Texas. They were both directors, and they wanted a producer to work with regularly. And I was like, well, I feel like I could take a shot at that. And so I moved to LA to kind of be boots on the ground out on the West Coast, because that's where the epicenter of the film and television business is. And so became an independent film producer for 4 years. And then in 2012, I had met a relatively successful executive producer, Hollywood proverb, birthday party I almost didn't go to, connected in a random conversation on the couch. Um, and uh, and then he thought I was capable and offered me an opportunity in television, originally as a writer's assistant and then later as a television writer. So I spent 4 years as an independent film producer and 4 years as a television writer. Then my story took a significant turn. I got offered an opportunity managing assets for a small family office in Central Texas, and single family office, but smaller than a single family office would normally be in Central
Yeah.
Texas. And one of the conditions of that job was I had to go to business school, and along the way, I noticed. So the business school that I went to was Mays Business School at Texas A&M University in Central Texas, and uh, while I was there, I really identified with the culture of the business school. And I started thinking to myself, how can I contribute to what this place is doing? Well, I had hosted and produced 2 podcasts in Los Angeles while I was living there and working in film and television. And I thought, I don't know if I can get a TV show going here, but I probably could get a video podcast going here. So I pitched them on the idea of a video podcast. I figured they would probably say no, but instead they said yes. And they agreed to fund it. I offered to work for free as a host, not as a producer, but as a host until they could figure out what they wanted the show to be. And we launched what became the Maze Mastercast in 2019. And then something else happened that I did not expect, which was other entities and institutions from around the university started reaching out, and around the local ecosystem started reaching out to me and to my producing partner and saying, hey, we love your podcast. We've been wanting to start something like this for a long time. We want a media brand of our own, an owned media brand. And we don't know what we're doing. Would you help us? And so the first 3 times this happened, we said, yeah, we love podcasts. We'd love to help you. We like talking about this stuff. It's really fun. Storytelling, exactly as you said earlier. And share your story, tell your story. Like, that's self-actualization. It's the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then after this had happened 10 times, we thought, I think the market might be, the market might be speaking to us. So we launched a company called Podcast Architects, which later rebranded as Proclaim. And I have been along the way during this whole journey, I've been a serial entrepreneur as well. And I'm a 7X founder and have certainly experienced my share of failure in foundership. But this particular business, Podcast Architects, later Proclaim, was a strong success, and the company was growing and so forth. One thing we were totally wrong about was what the business model should be. So we originally started it as a consulting firm, and nobody bought anything. And so we left our web address for years afterwards until the Proclaim rebrand. We left our web address as podconsulting.co to remind ourselves that if we ever started to follow, we're successful entrepreneurs, we have all the answers, to remind ourselves that sometimes we don't know jack about jack. But then, so the company started to grow and we started to generate some acquisition interest. And then actually just a few weeks ago, we closed an acquisition. We were acquired by a managed growth services provider called Celerant. Quick plug for Celerant, a managed growth services provider out of Austin. And so we were fortunate to go from 0 to acquisition in 4.5 years, fully bootstrapped. And for a guy who's had his share of failure in the entrepreneurial space, that it feels good to be there. So that's kind of brings us to now.
I love that, because there's a real consistency in your story there, which is that you've looked at opportunities, assessed them, and taken the risk to move them ahead. And I think as entrepreneurs, it's born in our DNA to take those risks, but it's calculating those risks without losing the essence of who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's easy to lose the authentic purpose that you have because you're taking opportunities that are not right for you. And it strikes me in your journey thus so far, you've always taken opportunities that align with your core values and your purpose, which is, it seems to be, maximizing your potential. Always trying to find another way of telling people's story. But why is that so important to you? And why is this ability to help people to maximize their potential so important to you?
Well, so there's kind of two sides to it. One is all the people who said yes to me when they didn't have to. I'm not going to pretend that people who were born on third base should not act like they hit a triple. And that was the case for me. Like, I came from a family of some means. And I was a reasonably bright kid, but like, also teachers just believed in me. They looked at me and they saw someone that they thought was going to be successful. I don't have any control over that. Like, that's just, that was good fortune from my perspective. And I experienced good fortune after good fortune after good fortune as a younger person, and had a tremendous amount of opportunities. So many people said yes to me when they didn't have to. And it's incumbent on me to pay that forward. That's, I can't pay it back, but I can pay it forward. So the other thing is, there were some moments of frustration for me working with people who didn't see value in what I was doing. And so both the good and the maybe not as good have motivated me to give opportunities to others that I didn't have. And so, both of that has turned to, well, how can I help these other people? How, like, I've gotten so much, and there was other stuff that I didn't get that I wish I had gotten. Well, how can we present, and we've talked a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the opportunity to level the playing field and to really just truly generate equal opportunity for everyone. That's exciting for me. Just because I'm a straight white man doesn't mean that that it's not important to help others who don't look like me, talk like me, think like me, people who disagree with me politically, like those. All of those people are worth helping. And it's just a question of how many can we help, like how many can we create opportunity for?
I think that's so important because, particularly around that kind of diversity and equity and inclusion piece, I think there's so much focus on the kind of deficit model around D&I. It's
Mm-hmm.
and don't get me wrong, there's a place for it. As a 6 foot tall black male, I totally get that, lived that good, bad, and indifferent journey in many, many ways. But
Yeah,
one thing I've always found important is that there's an underdog story within that, but everyone has their own journey. So whether you have had those opportunities or not, you have a responsibility to take the learning and utilize it in the way that adds value to somebody else.
exactly right.
And sometimes I think D&I can be put into this political box where it's about X, Y, and Z, and you don't fit this box, or you do, and therefore you means you're entitled to this or not, whatever that may be. Where I think it's about saying, well, if I come from a diverse background and I've got learning and experience, someone who's not from that background also has learning experience. So to me, 2 + 2 = 5, because there's something that we can both pull together to create an added value, another level of learning that enables both of us to learn.
Yeah.
But when it comes to storytelling, how have you been able to take, I guess, that type of approach and it helped other people to tell their stories in ways that helps them to really communicate how they are paying things forward?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think what really captures it for me is open your true self. Show your if you're willing to share your soul with another person, they are usually quickly willing to share with you and then to share with others as well. And so what I do is I lean into the failure. I lean into the things that I haven't done as well. I lean into the things that, the lonely moments. There can be a temptation as entrepreneurs and founders and people of some level of success to act like we've always been successful. We always had the right answers, and we will descend from on high to bless the unwashed masses with our wisdom. That's not what it is
We
at
are
all. I've
kings of
had
the earth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It
But
doesn't work like
the first year that I lived in LA was the loneliest year of my life, and it got so some of I've told this story a few times, but I got so lonely the first year that there was an office building near where I lived, and I would get dressed and I would put on my polo and I would walk over to that office building, and for hours at a time I would just ride the elevator up and down. And I would just talk to strangers on the elevator. It was probably, some of them saw me more than once. It was probably a little weird for a few of them. But I just had to have human contact, and I would just talk to strangers on elevators just to hear another person's voice in person. And that was how I survived the first year in LA. And
Can I just
so
interject there? Because and feel free to get it to share as much as you feel comfortable. But I guess I'm thinking about the mental journey that you went through during that time.
yeah,
Um, One thing's the loneliness and the feeling of vulnerability, and I'm sure many founders have felt that.
yeah,
And I'll happily share stories of my own journey on that as well.
yeah.
Um, but the mental journey of recognizing that in oneself, still having to put that mask on just enough to go in that lift every day,
Hmm.
wear that mask to talk to people. How did you deal with that conflict of self?
I guess there was It
And
was.
feel free to answer just as much as you feel comfortable. You know,
Yeah, I guess it was just it was the first thing I could think of to meet the need, and I knew that I could still present, professionally, that I could, comb my hair and put on a polo and put on my slacks and sort of look the part and do it in a way that would come off as non-threatening. I'm just just another guy at the at the office building, and I can have what feels for another person just like a normal conversation in an elevator. But for me, it was like water. It was what I truly needed, and I soaked up those moments. There was a homeless guy that I talked to during that time, and he would hang around in the courtyard of this building, and he asked me for a quarter one day. This is 2008, 2009, early 2009, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you today. And he kind of looked at me and he said, "Do you need a quarter?" And it kind of took me aback. I've never been asked by a homeless person if they can give me money. And I said, "What? Why do you ask?" And he said, "Well, you just look like you're having a hard day. I was wondering if you needed help."
wow.
And I mean that struck me.
Yeah,
And so I don't usually tell that part of the story very often,
no, I respect.
but the
I respect.
generosity of another person who doesn't have a whole lot like that, man, that touched me. And the way that I eventually was able to pull out of that situation didn't really have a whole lot to do with all of like these moments of vulnerability. It was just a question of time and continuing to build the relationships and
Mm,
demonstrate capability and things like that. But this was you know um Joseph Campbell, the hero with 1,000 faces. He says it's by going into the abyss that we discover our treasure. Where you stumble, where you fall down, there lies your treasure.
yeah, you know what? Well, firstly, Ben, genuinely, thanks for sharing that, because I know it's not always easy to share those moments of your life. So I appreciate that. Um, as you were talking there, you was about to get me going there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You got me thinking about a couple of moments on my own journey. Wow.
Well,
Maybe there
you
was
and you
one.
shared you shared one in your TED talk, which I thought was very meaningful.
Yeah, and that's what was coming to mind, to be honest with you, because there's a resonation of that conflict of self when you were talking there, in terms of how you see yourself and how somebody could save you, in inverted commas, and not even recognize that they've done that, or in
Yeah.
some ways would never ever know what they did to support you. Um, it's heavily underestimated, because we're in this world of entrepreneurship and business. We have our different masks regardless of where we are. And
Yeah.
we're always our core self if you're really in tune with who you are and you're not too sucked into the hype of it. But there are these touch points that really hit you at a core, and you have to check yourself about whether you're really built for this journey.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny, in a former life, I was the diversity officer for golf in the UK. And I was 30 years old, and I remember, traveling the culture, go to different golf clubs, talking about how they could tap into new markets in order to grow their membership and all of this piece.
Yeah.
And you know, looking at me, you wouldn't think me going into the deepest, darkest parts of the UK, private golf clubs, very wealthy establishments, huge waiting lists, every type of car you can imagine in the driveway.
Yeah.
Why they would listen to diversity and inclusion. Um, And I remember going into one particular place, and I won't say out of respect for the club, but one particular golf club. And you can
Yeah.
imagine, old panelled walls, every picture on the wall of every club captain from 18, God knows when. Certainly quite an intimidating place for someone who, was just coming into to come into that space.
Sure.
And prior to that role, talking about the identity piece, so my name is Joel Lloyd Graham Blake. I thought if I could make my name double barreled, so the Graham and the Blake together, I'd sound more posh. So going
Okay.
into these places, I would say my name is Joel Graham Blake. So until they met me, it sounded posh. So with this particular golf club, that's how they knew me at that point. I hadn't changed my name over. Um, and so by the time I turn up to deliver the training and everyone's in this old panel boardroom ready to listen to me, I walk in and it's like, okay, icy stairs, all of that type of stuff.
Right.
By the end of the training, I learned that people had holiday homes in the Caribbean. Someone wanted kind of my nan's jerk chicken recipe. Someone was a huge Bob Marley fan.
Yeah.
All these different things around culture and diversity became a blended connection between people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back, I went in there with my own sense of vulnerability, but my own sense of judgment as well.
Hmm.
And I realized that sometimes we can be ignorant of other people and we miss out on the learning that we can get from those same people who we would say were oppressive to us or
Hmm.
were lower than us in any regard. So maybe in a similar way with that homeless person, you had a thought, well, they're homeless, they wouldn't look at me in that way, or it came surprising they would offer you a quarter. And I think it's that connection with your human nature in every situation that enables you to get so much new learning from those interactions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's absolutely correct, because one thing that I learned from hosting the show for Texas A&M, and prior from hosting the shows in LA, but especially with the Maze Mastercast, because the guests that were coming on were people I had never met before for the most part. And I learned that each of those people had something to teach me, and each of those people had something to learn from me. And that's so important. I think that kind of perspective is so important because it takes away our vertical view of the world. We tend to think that someone is higher than someone else on the totem pole of society, so to speak. And really but if we think of every interaction as about learning something and teaching something, then that's when we can truly start to share with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I was taught once that in every adversity carries a lesson and a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we see adversity as negative things, but adversity could be very good for you if you're willing to be open to the learning that you'll get from that.
Yeah.
And I guess in your career, particularly in LA and Hollywood, and I guess in many ways, if I'm not speaking out of turn, but in many ways, you may have experienced a lot of fabrication of what life might mean,
Yeah.
shall we say,
Yeah.
in that environment and in that world. But I reckon you going into that space with that mentality, you must have had so many different learning interactions. I mean, are there any that come to mind in terms of, I guess, Hollywood and being in that world, and then obviously seeing that difference in how you saw your own world?
Sure. So I think being from Texas and from, a small to medium sized city in central Texas, it certainly equipped me pretty well to walk into LA and kind of know, like, this is real, that is not real. And to understand sort of the same quality that we see on Instagram or TikTok and even LinkedIn to some degree, is we get the most polished version of every story. We get we get the filters, we get all of that stuff. And so I was fortunate, though. People told me when I moved to LA, expect backstabbing and a cutthroat business and all of that. And that really wasn't my experience in the entertainment business. I think what I did encounter more of was sort of the both in personal interactions and then sort of publicly, just seeing how people portrayed themselves and so forth, was kind of the facade of just representing yourself in whatever way you feel serves you best in a particular situation.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That chameleon effect.
yeah, exactly. And so, but overall, I would say I had good experiences on the West Coast and in the entertainment business. I was very fortunate. Definitely got some breaks. I often wonder, how life would look different if I hadn't met those people at the time that I met them, or if I had met, other different people instead. And so. Yeah, in the end, I was so as a writer and producer. One of the reasons that I eventually got out of doing that business full time, I was very good at the job, but not great. I was very good, and that meant I was going to work most of the time, and so we can talk about that some other time. That's not really, but that was my experience.
Yeah, that's good, and I guess for many people who haven't had that experience, there's always this perception of what it's like out there. So it's nice to hear that you got a positive experience from that,
Hmm.
and you were able to, still get the great opportunities and to learn and to take that forward.
Yeah,
And it strikes me that a lot of that might have helped with shaping your entrepreneurial journey from there
without a doubt.
on, and taking you into where you are now. So, I guess in terms of the family office piece and the
Mhm.
investment side of things, um, how have you found that journey, kind of being on that side of the fence of supporting the investment into entrepreneurs and other businesses?
Yeah, so our family office and I have to be a little mindful of NDAs and so forth on certain aspects of
Of
that
course,
business,
yeah.
but the first thing that we did when I started working for the family office was to build a quant model for stock investment, public stock investment, and so that was an entirely new thing for me. I had to learn how to code, and I was very bad at it at first, and then I was doing all of this while going to business school for a full time MBA. If you know anyone who has the chance to do a full time MBA while working full time, tell them to pass. Don't do that. So it's done, and I'm very proud for the experience, but I would not do that again. But had a great experience in the MBA program, and then so we built a quant model for the public side of the investment, for the public side of the investment portfolio, and a lot of it in the early going, just without putting too fine a point on it, was building the legal partnerships, and
Yeah. All
interacting
the
with.
governance and structure and so forth. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and interacting with the trusts that already existed, and figuring out what we wanted, kind of the full package to look like.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to get in to see all of that, kind of how it all took shape from the very beginning, and so then we've done a little bit of stuff on the private side as well. Would love it. I would love for us to do more, but that's that we have a little bit of presence there, but not a whole lot. And so but yeah, now I've gone from fund manager to now chief investment officer, and that's been it's been a really interesting journey, and we've been fortunate to beat the market. I guess most years we haven't beaten the market every year. We certainly didn't in 2020. I think we did in 21, and then we have in the years since then. But and we didn't beat the market in 2019 either. So we've had our share of challenges certainly, um, but yeah, that's kind of how that whole journey has gone, and yeah,
It sounds.
it's been interesting balancing those things.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're epitomizing again that personal journey of drive and resilience in a business context, and taking organisations through those up and downs. The fact that you're still out there actively supporting businesses and looking for more opportunity to support business is a testament to you and that family office and the drive that you've had to ride that wave. So commend you all on that. And I
Thank you.
guess for the founders that you talk to and want to talk to, are there any particular types of business sectors that you like, or any kind of things that you look for in terms of those ideal businesses?
Yeah, I'll talk to founders in any business, because I appreciated when someone would have a conversation with me back in the day, even if it wasn't something that they were interested in. So we the way that you and I, and that I connected with OpenIntro, was actually through but we have a free founders community with, nearly 500 founders and several dozen investors. And the idea is it's totally free. The resource that I didn't have, one of the few things that I did not have access to when I was younger, was just a community to talk to about founderhood. And I think that's maybe even more true now, despite all the tools that are out there. So much of it is, is like there's just an immediate cost associated with it.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
we've tried to build this in such a way that, that it is, that it's free and always will be. And so connecting that ecosystem is something that means a lot to me. But to bring it around on sectors that you mentioned, in terms of, sectors that I'll invest in, and I have my own angel investments outside the family office, and I'll do almost any sector is eligible. I love fine arts as a person, and as a consumer. I don't invest in fine arts. I saw too many great shows go bad, and too many maybe not so good shows go well. But so I don't invest in fine arts. I'm a little bit hesitant on food and beverage, and then medical devices. Pretty high standard for medical devices, just because the approvals take so long. And I don't really invest in brick and mortar retail, which is still out there. I see a lot of pitches for that kind of thing. But anything else, for other than that, I'm mostly sector agnostic. And my investment approach is a little bit different than most people. Most people will invest and then syndicate, and I'll usually syndicate and then invest, and I'll basically piggyback off of people who are better at due diligence on the private side than I am. I'm very good at due diligence on the public side, but I was able to build relationships in private investment much faster than I was able to build diligence capabilities. And so what I do is I just share the deal with my friends and I say, "What do you think?" And then they'll tell me, here are the red flags, or there aren't any red flags, or this is a very exciting opportunity. And then I'll invest, usually based on the wisdom of others, and being able to use those, it's not network effects exactly, but just the benefits of that network has been something that's very helpful to me.
Yeah, that's good, and yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think the wisdom of others is so crucial in this day and age more than ever before.
Yeah,
And
without a doubt.
sometimes investing could be very much, okay, we're just going to put money in, and we'll do the due diligence, but you want to have that trusted insight. You want to make sure that there's personal values are aligning with the personal values of the founder, and all of that type of piece. So I think that's really commendable in that approach,
Thank you.
and I hope a lot of other angels take on board that approach as well. I guess as we're coming towards the end, but what I'd really want to, I guess, tap into a little bit is your sense of leadership now and in the future. We talked about vulnerability earlier, and I'm a great believer that being vulnerable is actually a strength. Partly because it forces you to be what I called your naked self, if you like, where you have to make a choice, right? You can either go back to your comfort zone where you've come from because it's nice and easy, and it may not even be easy, but you're used to it. You think you can cope and deal with things better, or you could take half a step forward into an unknown, which is often more scary than your comfort zone 10 steps behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think there's a strength there because you've got 10 steps worth of experience to inform that half a step forward. And I think as leaders in our modern day, tapping into your own vulnerability enables you to be very clear about what value you actually bring in the spaces that you're in, learning from what worked before, and also learning from what didn't work before in order
Yeah.
to help and lead others. But as you move forward on your own leadership journey, with that sense of authenticity, which absolutely screams out of you, what is it that you'd like to maybe share with others or other leaders, whether it's other founders or other leaders who are supporting founders? What have you learned from your leadership experience that you'd like to maybe share with others?
Yeah, leadership is service. That's really what it boils down to. And understanding it is by best understanding others that we are best able to serve them, which is our entire duty as leaders. Like as a leader, you have to one of your foremost priorities has to be the service of everyone in the organization. That is what I think is at the heart of true leadership. And so if you're a CEO, like understanding, expectancy theory and how to, how to put, how to drive job satisfaction for the people that you're working with, and how to, just making sure that, that they and their families are that their lives are better, for not just that that you never miss a payroll and that you're able to make sure that they're able to pay their bills and so forth, but also, you know, pouring into them from a personal perspective. Learning about who they are as people and what they value outside of work, and talking with them about what their goals for the future are, and what they want out of the rest of their life, where they want to go next, what's going to be the next step in their journey. I think that is what is really at the root of leadership. Do 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 do.
Sorry about that, Ben.
Oh, that's all right.
Sorry, I
I went.
think
I
the
just.
Wi
I
the
kept.
Wi-Fi
I
just cut there.
Yeah. No. I kept riffing after you dropped off and went ahead and finished the answer on leadership.
That's fine. I appreciate that. The beauty about this system, it continues to carry on. The AI just keeps recording and kicking in, so that's fine. We haven't missed anything, but apologies for that.
Yeah. No problem.
Don't know why that cut out there,
Yeah, no
but it's
worries.
fine. But yeah, I'll leave that point there because if you've carried on, that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess in final closing, then I think for me, what I've really learned, I guess today from you, Ben, is a real art of authentic leadership and understanding that authenticity and that kind of cliche of being yourself in anything that you do is not about having a deficit approach. It's about always trying to be on the front foot, and it's about always trying to utilize the opportunities in the best way forward, but doing it from a place of a genuine desire to help others. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can get so caught into our roles and our experiences or our positions in life, and we lose that sense of self. But you've absolutely epitomized the beauty of knowing that you don't know everything, but what you do know, you know very, very well. And you make no apologies for that. And it's how you use that knowledge and an experience to meander yourself through to achieve your purpose. And I highly respect you and commend you for that, because I just think those who have your level of experience sometimes in life can lose that. And I think it's that level of experience that helps other people to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about helping and serving others. So thank you for sharing your journey.
Yeah, thanks. No, and you're 100% correct. It's not, especially at this point, like it's not about me. And even if it, like, nobody wants to hear about it. Like the, this is like I don't want, I know people who go and speak at student organizations, and they're going up there and putting like their pay stubs and bank statements in front of these students, and
No,
like what my response to that is just to, honestly, to laugh. Is that's like, what? Why would you do that? Everybody's already impressed with you. Like, there's you don't have to. Anyway, I could get on my soapbox about
no, I
that,
hear
but
you. And I hear you. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch. I think that's a conversation I love to have.
yeah,
Um,
another time.
but look, in as a final, I guess, finishing off, I mean, what would you say to those who would watch this podcast, who want to get in contact with you? Why should they contact Ben Wiggins?
Yeah. So for founders and business owners who are interested in, securing investment for your company, if you're interested in getting in touch with an investor network, if you're interested in potentially pitching me on your business idea, you can book me on OpenIntro. You guys are familiar with the platform, and I'm sure there will be a link in the description to be able to do that. And the other groups that I'm trying to connect with on behalf of Celerant, who's now my employer following the acquisition, are accelerators, economic development, regional economic development, corporate innovation, and then other investors as well. We're one of the leading ecosystem partners around the investment space, and would love to talk with them as well. So yeah, happy to have those conversations anytime. And Joel, thanks so much for allowing me the opportunity to come on today and share a little bit of my story.
No, thank you much, and a powerful story it absolutely was. So thank you, and we look forward to working more with you through Open Intro. And
Absolutely.
for those who looked at today's episode, thank you very much for your time. Also, we hope that you can take some of the gems and insight from Ben today to really help you drive your business forward. Get in touch with Ben, check out his profile, have a chat, and we look forward to see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Joel.